businesses, launched the largest forced movement of human beings in recorded history, igniting centuries of enslavement, colonization, and a brutal legacy of global anti-Blackness.
Good day. Welcome. My name is Enola, and I'm the founder of Community Healing Network and also co-lead with my dear Dr. Joy DeGruy of the Healing Working Group of the Global Circle for Reparations and Healing. Happy Black August, a month in which we commemorate some of the countless consequential people and events in global African history. Today, we continue yesterday's commemoration of the International Day for the Remembrance of Slavery and its Abolition by remembering our ancestors with profound love and gratitude in recognition for their inherent dignity and for their heroism in making a way out of no way for us. A few minutes ago, you saw a clip from Centering Healing Across Global Africa, a documentary produced by the Global Circle about our 2025 Accra Summit 2 that focused on the urgent need to heal from the harmful legacies of that period of enslavement. The film touches on a wide range of critical issues affecting Black people globally and chronicles the beginning of the movement for complete healing for Africans and people of African descent worldwide. This webinar series explores themes raised in the film, and this edition of the series focuses on the issue of global anti-Blackness. Because wherever we find ourselves in this world, we face similar assaults because we are Black. Discrimination, being targeted for violence, being presumed incompetent because of the color of our skin. The list is long. And those assaults have wounded our people physically, emotionally, psychologically for generations. Wherever we have found ourselves, we have drawn on our African strengths and resilience to survive and to resist. But there's never been a worldwide coming together of Black people to build a movement to heal our common wounds, a global movement until now. Centering Healing, the documentary, which is available on YouTube, tells the story of that coming together. Our aim with this webinar, this whole series, is to spark a public-private conversations throughout the Black world about the growing international movement for healing. We welcome our panelists today, Dr. Joy DeGruy of Be the Healing, Kwesi Amoak of the Africa America Institute, who is in Ghana having some difficulties connecting with us, and we sure do hope you make it, brother, and Tre'Von Henderson, Morehouse College class of 2026. I will also join the panel, and I represent Community Healing Network. You can find background information on all the panelists and the program for these few minutes together in the chat. Speakers will tell you a bit more about themselves as part of their introductions and their presentations. And in the interest of moving forward briskly, each speaker will hand off to the next speaker. And so we now move to Healing Moments with Dr. Joy DeGruy.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, according to where you are in the world. Most people know me from my work around post-traumatic slave syndrome, America's legacy of enduring injury and healing, emphasis on the healing. Aside from that, I work with my co-chair, Dr. Enola, who is a phenomenal attorney and a phenomenal person that we probably would not be here were it not for her. And aside from that, the other thing that people know me for is fishing. I won't get deeply into that, but people know that I go fishing, and that is something that is very important in my life. I wanted to take some time this morning. There are 3 parts to this exercise that I want to do. One is a grounding. It's grounding in your body. And what I want you to do wherever you are is to sit quietly, and I want you to feel where and how maybe stress shows up in your body. I want you to feel your body from your head down to your toes, and identify those spaces in your body where stress resides, where racial tension shows up. I want you to breathe into that space in your body. Now I want you to recall a specific moment or place where you felt fully safe, unguarded, the sounds, the smells, textures, the visual. I want you to go to that place, totally unguarded. See and feel what is around you. Lean into that safety. Now we are going to return and get it. We're going to reframe. I want you to name one piece of cultural wisdom or practice that still serves you now, that may have come from your ancestors. I want you to hold on to that and name that cultural wisdom. And how it serves you now. Right now, I'm seeing my father and my grandmother and my mother. I'm seeing my uncles, my aunts, how firmly they stood, how they gave me my voice. How that serves me now. Now I want you to release what's not yours, what you did not carry, what you do not carry. I want you to release that. I want you to tend to your body and release what is not yours. Now we're going to end with a breathing exercise with a voicing. So I want you to breathe in for 2 counts. Breathe in. 1, 2. Hold. 1, 2. Breathe out. 1, 2. And now I want you to say, while breathing, what happened to us is not who we are. Repeat that. What happened to us is not what we are. Now I want you to repeat. I am not the harm. I am the hope. I want you to repeat that. I am not the harm. I am the hope. Breathe in. 1, 2. Hold. 1, 2. And breathe out. 1, 2. Thank you. I'm going to pass it on to my sister, Dr. Enola Aird.
Yeah, Dr. Joy, thank you for centering us this morning and reminding us who and whose we are and what our assignment is. I am an African born in the Republic of Panama. My people are from the Caribbean, from Barbados, both my grandmothers. My grandfather, paternal, from Jamaica, maternal from Jamaica, and paternal from Grenada. And there's a story my mother used to tell me about the day that I was born. The nurses were surprised, she said, not because there was anything extra concerning from a medical point of view about me, but because my family was so delighted to welcome me into this world. She said that all of the family who gathered at the hospital was so excited, but out of the corner of one of her eyes, she saw one of the nurses turn to another in amazement and say, "Look," she heard him say, "Look, they love their children," as if we were a different species. My parents are obviously Black. The nurses were white. In the 1950s in Panama, a country that was every bit as much in the grip of anti-Blackness as the United States was back then. And my mother used to tell this story often as an example of the ways in which we were living in a world controlled by white people who thought us to be much, much less than they were. And she often wondered how and when will this end? Now, I have been a mother for many years and a grandmother, facing the same devaluation of Black life that my mother confronted. But for me, the question is not when will it end? For me, the question is when will we Black people, end it? You know, we have lived with anti-Blackness really all our lives, right? Everybody born over the last 600 years has been born into a world that, and we are strong and we're resilient. I don't think we tend to fully appreciate it in all of its depth, its breadth, its complexity, and absolute diabolical genius. And so to begin to deepen our understanding, I want to give you a story. It is a story about a lie. Let me take us back to the beginning, the birthplace of humanity, the cradle of civilization, the mother, the home of mitochondrial Eve, the mother of all human beings, and the wealthiest continent on the face of the earth, Africa, where humanity got its start, where human beings evolved, begin to build communities and create art and culture and technology. And for centuries, Africa and Africans interacted commercially and culturally with other parts of the world. There was some sense of anti-Blackness for sure in the early world. Medieval paintings tell us, the paintings in Europe, for example, tell us that sometimes Black people were depicted as members of royal courts, and other times they were depicted as wild and dangerous aliens. But early on, anti-Blackness was not as pernicious as it would become later under European domination. Africa in the ancient world was the home of civilizations which, according to the historian Skip Gates, were just as splendid and glorious as any on the face of the earth. But by the 15th century, those splendid civilizations were brutally disrupted. Portugal begins to intensify its trade with communities off the west coast of Africa. Exchanges that began with commodities like sealskins and oil and ostrich eggs are expanding to include trafficking in human beings, African men, women, and children. Popes of the Roman Catholic Church are issuing papal bulls authorizing the Portuguese to extend their empire southward into Africa in the name of Christ. In the Dum Diversas bull issued by Pope Nicholas V, he grants the monarchy of Portugal full and free power to invade, search out, capture, vanquish, and subdue all Saracens, Muslims, and pagans whatsoever, and other enemies of Christ wheresoever placed, and to reduce those persons, their persons, to perpetual servitude. Remember that phrase, perpetual servitude. It is as old as humanity itself. The Greeks and Romans did it. Yes, Africans did it. They enslaved and sold other Africans as well. But the kind of enslavement created in the course of the European trafficking of African human beings is unique in human history. The European enslavement of Africans was justified by a particular dehumanizing idea, a false hierarchy of human value that put white people at the very top and Black people at the very bottom, and often not in the human family at all. Which brings us to the lie. This European designed hierarchy erased the truth of Africa's rich history and the truth of the humanity of African people, or at least it tried to do so, and replaced it with the lie of African backwardness and Black inferiority, the most powerful weapon ever formed against African people. Justified in part by the biblical curse of Ham, the lie essentially cast Black people out of the circle of humanity. It marked an entire continent, Africa, as inferior, and its people, all of its people, as subhuman. The relentless telling of that lie, backed by centuries of physical and psychic terror, is the bulldozer that paved the way for the multi-generational subjugation of African people all around the world, and the economic exploitation of the African continent from the 15th century until this present moment, 11:23 a.m. Eastern Time, August 24th, 2026. According to the lie, everything Black, our hair, the color of our skin, our physical features, our intelligence, our spirituality, our values, everything about us is inferior. So remember the term perpetual servitude? Global anti-Blackness was meant to last forever. And the lie is the instrumentality that has enabled it to last this long. And unless it is interrupted by us, it will continue to last because it was meant to just keep going. And we know that's what happened. It is the lie that has inflicted the deepest and longest lasting wounds on the minds, bodies, and spirits of African people. It is at the heart of the crime against our humanity because it undermined our ability to fully love and trust ourselves and fully love and trust each other. The lie is the thread that is running throughout the entire fabric of global systemic anti-Blackness, adversely affecting the world's perceptions of us, and all too often our perceptions of ourselves. The lie is the reason why, according to the UN, people of African ancestry all over the world are among the poorest and most marginalized groups. It's the reason why skin bleaching is the reason why skin bleaching is a public health crisis in parts of Africa and the Caribbean. It's the reason why a study some years ago in the United States found if all human beings, Black people are the people most often associated with apes, an association that contributes to the devaluing of Black life. So we Black people suffer today because our ancestors were forced into a form of subjugation that was meant to last forever. And because of that lie, always invisibly doing its job, it has lasted. And it is part and parcel of every global institution. The lie has been passed down through the generations to us, and it will be passed on to our children and grandchildren unless and until we free ourselves and our children and the world from it. Unless we heal from and extinguish the lie, the assaults on our dignity and our lives and our humanity might never, ever end. The harm done by this lie is so deeply ingrained in global culture that it requires intentional, comprehensive, and global healing to undo it. And healing from this lie is absolute necessity, a prerequisite for emotional healing, wellness, empowerment, and unity among African people throughout the world. That is why Community Healing Network focuses its work exclusively on this lie, on healing from it and extinguishing it, and why we have brought our resources to the Global Circle to support its work of building a global infrastructure for healing. In closing, for more than 600 years, Black people on the continent and in the diaspora have been living our lives according to a narrative written for us by other people to serve their interests. That narrative, designed to replace African identity with European identity, is grounded in the lie, a lie that was meant to last forever. The people who devised it are not likely to ever recant it or to stop it from operating. Only we can do that. So we invite you to join us as we attack that lie as a key part of the Global Circle's mission to build a global infrastructure for healing. We have to do this, people, because our children and our ancestors are waiting. Dr. Joy.
One of the things that we wanted to do with this webinar is we wanted to really dive in and lean into what we call the harm. This part of our history that we must understand in order to not perpetuate what Dr. Enola just said, to not perpetuate the intent to maintain this sense of anti-Blackness forever and to keep us in a mental bondage, a physical bondage, a spiritual bondage. And so my thought about this immediately was something that was said to me by one of our great heroes, Randall Robinson. Randall Robinson said that the worst thing that you can do to a people is to rob them of the memory of themselves. To rob them of the memory of themselves. And we say that, I mean, it may seem kind of philosophical. It really isn't. Let me operationalize that to kind of put it in a context that you might understand. I recently was asked to present, not really to present, actually, this was really a community-based effort to start dealing with the issues of suicide among young African American girls, which is rising. And I was there to try to support the existing organization. I was there to share some tools about how to work through anger, fear, distress, depression, you name it. And in the middle of the session, there was a beautiful opportunity for everyone to come together in the group. And there were four young ladies, I will never forget them, that stood up and sang the Black National Anthem in four-part harmony. I could feel the hairs on my skin, right? It was beautiful. I mean, stunning, right? I could feel it vibrating. But there were a group of high school girls who were participants, and a number of them leaned over and said, "That's a beautiful song. What's that song? What's it? What's the name of that song?" And I mean, there's a level of shock. You're just shocked. High school. And for me, so I wanted to put that in the context of where we are right now, 2026, and understanding that if we are not communicating who we are, and we're leaving it to someone else to write that narrative, the narrative they're going to receive is the one that Dr. Enola just spoke of, that affirms the lie of white superiority and Black inferiority. If we do not intentionally educate ourselves and embrace what our ancestors learned and understood. The second part of this, in understanding who we are and whose we are, and the whole idea of remembering, is remembering our existence did not start with enslavement. There were African kingdoms that were trading in textiles and gold, the kingdom of Aksum, the Mali Empire, all of these, and these are not obscure, by the way, what I'm sharing. This information isn't obscure. It was simply left out. We can't have Black children remembering, understanding, and embracing that truth, because that would mean, of course, now here's moving that concept of us being not only slaves, not even enslaved, slaves. That was the target, to say that's what you are. For you to have a life of toil, of bondage, permanent bondage. Now it changed in terms of names and laws, right? We said, okay, they said, okay, we can't do that to people anymore. And the UN talked about crimes against humanity, but we'll get to that resolution later. But we have to interrogate what has happened in terms of perpetuating it. So in other words, what happened after enslavement? What happened after slavery officially ended? Did it end, or did it take on other forms of restriction? Jim Crow. Because the first thought was, if these people are inferior, let's do the math. Okay, we don't want you around us. We don't want you to go to school with us. We don't want you to eat with us. We don't want you to sit with us. We do not want you near us. And so we said, okay. And we went away and built our own towns, our own cities, our own schools, our own banks, our own hospitals, all the businesses. We built it, and we're thriving. Now, what happened then? Because you see, you have to understand that anything that confronts the lie, that somehow defies the lie, we can't have that. Because if you are inherently inferior, you see, you cannot function on your own. You're not capable of those things. Because you see, in the absence of knowing what Africa has done and what Africa has produced in the world, in the absence of that, we have to remind people that look like us that you're not able to, you're not competent to do so. So we went away, we built towns segregated away from white people. And what happened? You know what happened. They went, wait a minute. Wait a minute. We wanted you away, but we did not want you to thrive. Because to thrive defies the lie. And we can't have that. And people don't even stop to think about it. We're talking about 1921 in Tulsa. airplanes had really just come into existence. And the first bombing with Molotov cocktails from planes was in Tulsa on American soil. Are you following me? So not only did they first rape and pillage and murder, they bombed it. So there was no visual reminder that defied the lie. So what we have to really understand, I mean, what I really understand, what you know about my work, it's not about, it's not about looking backwards. It's looking at how what that lie has impacted us today. Our dear sister Isabel Wilkerson talked about this house. She talked about this house that we've inherited, this house that we have normalized suffering. We have normalized being considered inferior. We've normalized that to the extent that that poison seeps through how we even see each other. So when we talk about harm and we talk about somehow addressing or healing that harm, we have to understand the nature of it. I'd have people, and maybe I'll take you through it, because if I take you through it, then you understand. I just did this, like, I do this for a living, but I people intellectualize this stuff too much, actually, intellectualize, especially people who think they've arrived. Folks that think they're woke, or people who think they're, oh yeah, well, I have several degrees in, or, fill in the blank, and living in this skin, we learn a whole lot. But what I ask people to do, and I want you to do it with me. I'll do it briefly. I don't know, I have a few minutes. I want everyone who is in the webinar, wherever you are in the world, I want you to close your eyes. And I'm going to take you through a guided imagery. You're in a car and it's late at night. You're in a major city in America somewhere. And as you look ahead, you notice that there are blinking lights. Quickly, you realize those are police cars that are now blocking the road in front of you. On either side of you, there are police cars lining the street. You look beyond the police cars in front of you, and there is a yellow tape. Beyond the yellow tape, there are three young men on their knees. Their hands are handcuffed behind their back, and they don't have shirts on. Now open your eyes. Tell me who you saw. Now, what's important about this? I don't know what you saw. I can't really tell you, but I don't think it's three blonde-haired, blue-eyed boys. I don't think so. I think if we gather all the people here and put them together, and I did this exercise in high schools all over the United States, and they saw brown and black boys. I did this in middle schools, and they saw brown and black boys. I dared not go to elementary schools. But I left this country. It was translated into different languages, and they saw brown and black boys. So you see, it doesn't matter how smart you are. It has been drilled into you. It has been deliberately implanted in your consciousness who the bad guy is, what that bad guy looks like, what we should do to them. Because you see, they are the danger, and they confirm the lie. It's drilled into your mind. Do you hear what I'm saying to you? It takes more than a conversation. It takes, for example, the brother Tre'Von and what he's going to bring, and what I know happens all over this country. Those beautiful, brilliant minds. So when we talk about harm, we recognize that that harm is something that we really need to look at mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually. And my brother Kwesi is going to tell us a little more, if he's there.
Thank you very much, Dr. Joy. I am, and I'm happy to.
Brother Kwesi is trying to join us from Ghana. Is he in Ghana?
Is in Ghana, having a lot of connection problems, which I see he's in his car as a result thereof. Can you hear us, Kwesi?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, but what I meant was that I have to go off the video so that due to the internet quality, I can focus on the presentation. I hope you all heard me.
Excellent.
Yes.
All right. So my presentation, briefly, is called Towards an Understanding of the Malware of Coloniality. The malware of coloniality. And what is coloniality and how is it reinforced? Coloniality, from what we've learned from the works of Anibal, Quijano, Miguel Mignolo, Frantz Fanon, and others, it's a normative frame of values, attitudes, ways of knowing and being, resulting from the logic of colonial dominance, what I call the gaze of the colonizer. And Frantz Fanon's classic book, Black Skin, White Masks, speaks to that. Mostly when we talk about coloniality, the reference is made to Western hegemony. But in reality, Arabic hegemony also did so much harm and continues to do harm, as I'm going to show. So the most important thing is whether Western, European, or Euro-American, as it turned out, or Arabic hegemonic dominance, which builds all these hierarchies that both Dr. Joy and Dr. Enola spoke about. What I want to point out is that it is crucial to understand that the end of settler colonialism, the end of the colonial administrations that gave way to independence of African states. I mean, sometimes I think they were but they were really flag independence, did not mean the end of coloniality. And Kwame Nkrumah refers to this as neocolonialism. Now, I usually use the language of computer science to describe coloniality as the colonial virus, which is the malware. Malware is built to harm, to disrupt, to steal from, which continues in insidious forms as it's reinforced through several examples, including policies of different sectors of post-colonial regimes across Africa. Example, health, where according to the World Health Organization, about 70 to 75% of rural populations depend on traditional health practice, yet they are sidelined, right? The traditional medical system is sidelined in favor of the biomedical practices, which were built by the colonial administrators originally for themselves. You're looking at tools. I want to focus on education and what Dr. Joy spoke about when it is drilled into the mind. So there is no doubt, and what I want to do is to trace this malware, this colonial virus, through the educational summary of educational policies from the 1920s to 2020. Okay, so and to the present moment, and to show that coloniality is still reinforced to date. So there is no doubt that from its conception and inception, the intent and purpose of the six-sanctioned formalized system of school education introduced by Europeans, both by the government and missionaries, to the shores of the Gold Coast from the 16th century onwards as castle schools. It wasn't designed to be, was designed to be inevitably, intricately linked to the colonial empire building process. In February 1729, about 300 years ago, the Portuguese king João III ordered the governor to open the first castle school at Edina Elmina for teaching reading, writing, and the Bible in Portuguese to African children at a time European societies were characterized by high rates of illiteracy. Such education from the castle school formed a crucial part of the historical entanglement between Africa, particularly West Africa, and the emerging modern capitalist world system. This foundational orientation became the essential principle for formal education, including the education of the Christians I had mentioned in the Gold Coast and other territories of Africa, and subsequently inherited and inflected into the policies of education in post-colonial states. And I must state that a particular founding father of an African nation, Amilcar Cabral, perhaps stood out as one of the most important figures to have tried to change this software from the beginning. Not Kwame Nkrumah, as we shall soon learn. Frederick Gordon Gagisberg became governor of the Gold Coast in 1919, just after post-World War I. He's known for his immense contribution to the infrastructure development and key institutions he set up in the Gold Coast. The educational reforms he's put in place continued into independence, and I must say, to date. He wrote a book in 1924 called The Keystone on reflections on education. He did not mince words about the urgent need and purpose for educating more Africans in the Gold Coast. He said, I quote him, "Government has definitely, this is British government, has definitely adopted the policy of employing Africans in appointment hitherto held by Europeans, provided that the former are equally qualified in education, ability, and character. But progress in carrying out this policy is slow, owing to the scarcity of suitably qualified Africans. When besides the need of government, that of the European firms, mercantile, banking, and professional is considered, it is apparent that there is a great field for the employment of well-educated Africans throughout the country. As we see, the purpose of educating the African was for building a workforce for the colonial empire building, even at the time, and beyond we shall see that. Nkrumah became leader of government business in 1951, and he put forth what we call the Accelerated Development Plan, which was mainly about building structures to get more people to go to school. And when he became prime minister in 1961, he created what we call the Education Act, of 1961. However, Nkrumah could not, and I did not say he did not, because he made attempt, as we find in the formation of the Institute of African Studies. He couldn't change the colonial software, the malware of the curriculum for education, largely continuing from Gagisberg framework, of which he himself was a product at the elite Achimota School, meant to produce the kind of workforce envisioned by the colonial government. After his overthrow in 1966, subsequent governments have set up several educational reform committees, and the current system of schooling is the common core curriculum introduced by 2022. And I'm sure those of you within the American system know the origin of the common core curriculum and its basis and what it seeks to do. The common core, of course, is ill-adapted and in many ways reinforces coloniality within the Ghanaian space. As we have seen, the colonial virus keeps changing its shape over time. Thus, as it is today, the policies of school education in Ghana and other African countries is not in sync with the social-cultural realities of the African. We are miseducated, alienated from the inherent creative potential of our varied cultures and the immense history and memory of resilient innovation and creativity by our ancestors. As far back as pre-dynastic Egypt, we alienated from that. There is also the next consequence, epistemicide, the silencing, trivializing, and erasure of indigenous knowledge systems and worldviews. And then also education is still designed to produce a workforce for white-collar jobs. Therefore, we are not educated to apply our minds to solving the fundamental problems, including economic problems of society. For instance, we have largely not been producers, rather consumers and sellers of products from elsewhere. Otherwise, why do we continue to export our gold, cobalt, cocoa, and so on unprocessed? We are always looking for so-called messiahs from Washington, Beijing, Moscow, and elsewhere, right? This is part of what the educational system does to us. We're always looking for salvation from elsewhere. And as recent as May 2026, the current Minister of Education signed what is called a landmark AI education deal with Google for education. And in that, he said, the partnership will support innovation in teaching and learning, strengthen digital literacy, enhance teacher capacity, and equip Ghanaian students with the critical skills needed for the future of work in an increasingly technology-driven world. And when you unpack all these terms, you realize that it comes to the core, the common core curriculum, and it's, onto epistemic backgrounds. The value systems are completely different from what the African societies really need. Yes, there's a need for a workforce, no doubt about that. But if you look at the way it is framed, increasingly technology-driven, in whose interest will this landmark agreement be? That is the question we should be asking. The final one I want to talk about is a mistrust. I heard Dr. Joy talk about that and Dr. Enola. Mistrust in our own agency and in our relationships, including relationship with sisters and brothers from the diaspora. And we keep hurting. I have, from my own lived experience, witnessed oftentimes some, of course not all, sisters and brothers from the diaspora arrive on the African continent, the motherland, woefully lacking an understanding of the coloniality so pervasive in the different spheres of the African post-colony. And based on their own miseducation about Africa, some of these diasporan sisters and brothers tend to assume a posturing of royals and messiahs, only to end up frustrated and even scammed and extorted by African sisters and brothers, or cousins, as others like to call it, who are also miseducated about the struggles of Black people in the diaspora and elsewhere, and keep expecting, receiving without responsibility from saviors from elsewhere. So these, for me, are some mapping out of the coloniality or the malware. If you want to really understand it, it comes through, particularly through the system of education and the policies that we create, and how these continue to reinforce coloniality, giving dominance to other people or other systems beyond us. Like Dr. Enola said, the system was engineered to continue in perpetuity as it is. And to be able to understand, we need to be able to really do some kind of sociogenesis, as Fanon calls it, and be able to look at how we ourselves even reinforce coloniality. I mean, I reinforce coloniality in different ways because I have been formally schooled. And so I have to be cautious of that. But we need to deal with that history. We need to deal with such difficult aspects of us, because it's, as Bob Marley would say, we've got to emancipate ourselves from mental slavery. That is the ultimate thing, ultimate work we need to do. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kwesi. It is so wonderful, and we are just so grateful to have have you with us, and just always having a reflection of folks from the continent, because that connection that you talked about, that divide, right, which is also part of the plan. And I say this every single time, that the one thing that the oppressor relies on is our ability to not come together. We cannot give in to that. We cannot. And just briefly in introducing, can I share, Dr. Enola? I think I can. Can I share something? It's just a visual.
Dr. DeGruy, can we share?
I think I can.
Okay.
Yes, I think Kirsten can assist that.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll try to do it. Let's see if I can do this. Yeah, I think I can. I just wanted to show this picture very quickly. When I give that, I always try to give, share with people that visual I took you on. On the right, I am currently a distinguished visiting scholar at Morehouse College. Right here, this picture on the right was an assembly. It wasn't a graduation, it was an assembly. And that's how many Black scholars are there. 751 new freshmen came in, and that was quite an amazing thing, welcoming these brothers in, telling all the parents they're going to become men, you have to let go of them here. It was such a powerful ceremony. Over to the left, you're looking at North Carolina. This is every year. So I'm going to stop sharing, but I just want, that was an assembly. This was this year. I just happened to be there, right? But we don't get to see these images. And what I'm saying to everyone is this happens every year. Instead of us seeing the three on their knees. Do you see what I'm saying? This reality, if we don't make it visible, our own people, even right outside the gates of Morehouse, won't believe it could happen, won't believe it exists. Young men and women who we're passing the baton to. And one of those people we're passing the baton to is Tre'Von Henderson.
You're muted. Still muted.
Can you all hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. I'm sorry about that. But no, I first wanted to say thank you, Dr. DeGruy, for that wonderful introduction. And thank you to all the panelists for what you've contributed. So first, to start off, I want to start off with a quote from Malcolm X, right? So this comes from Malcolm X gave this speech in 1964, but basically he said, if you stick a knife in my back 9 inches and pull it out 6 inches, there's no progress. If you pull it all the way out, there's no progress. The progress is healing the wound that is below. And with that, the significance of this conversation, which each scholar has alluded to from their own personal stories, is focused on healing and centering the healing that is needed all throughout the diaspora, right? Not just in one area, not just in the United States, not just in Europe, not just in the motherland, but all throughout, right? Everywhere that Black people are, which is the whole world, right? So with that, I also, and I'm very big on having quotes and referencing our history to make sure that we can get contextualized evidence to support where we're going. And one thing that Martin Luther King said, and where do we go from here? This is my second favorite Dr. King book, but he said, we Negroes who have dreamed for so long of freedom are still confined in a prison of segregation and discrimination. Must we respond with bitterness and cynicism? Certainly not. For this can lead to Black anger so desperate that it ends in Black suicide. Must we turn inward in self-pity? Of course not. For this can lead to a self-defeating Black paranoia. Must we conclude that we cannot win? Certainly not. For this will lead a Black nihilism that seeks disruption for disruption's sake. Must we fatalistically concluding that segregation is a foreordained pattern of the universe, resign ourselves to oppression? Of course not. And with this conversation, I want to focus on how now, with being a 22-year-old Black man in America, recognizing that our generation is now being oppressed in many different ways. As Dr. DeGruy alluded to earlier, as well as Dr. Enola, we've even as Dr. Enola shared the story about her birth, right? And the response of the doctors. Now, let's look at that on a level that impacts this generation. We can see this through higher education being impacted. We can see this through the bans and people being deported, even if they were American born, or excuse me, even if they are American born citizens, having to leave their country in which they were born to a place that's unfamiliar to them because of what they look like. That's incorrect. And the reason that I initiated Malcolm X's quote is because the healing that needs to take place starts not only with us recognizing the oppressor, but it starts with recognizing the oppressor and then coming together and then spreading this message too, right? Because if we have a one-sided view and we're just spreading the message and then no work is being done, where are we going? Where are we to go? And so I wanted to reference just some pieces of literature that really hone in on this. So I referenced Where Do We Go by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., but also Salvation by Bell Hooks. And I think that's so significant to who we are because we have been integrated. Like Dr. DeGruy, this is what she alluded to when she said it's been as we did the exercise with closing our eyes, and then we opened them, and then we all saw young black and brown men, young black or brown men, excuse me, right? Why is that? That's by design. That's by the system in which we've been integrated into, but a system that works so hard to keep not only keep us down, but to keep us separated. Why is it that and Dr. DeGruy alluded to going to high schools, to going to colleges, to going to middle schools, and this is the same result, even in early adolescence. And so I have a piece that I wrote that I would like to share. And the name of it is Songs That I Am. And throughout this piece, I hope that this piece serves as a mirror or a reflection for all of us, not being exempt from what's at stake, not being exempt from the calling that we have. Because I don't even believe that it's by happenstance that all of us who are on this call is just here to be here, right? This is working towards something, but we have to know how to do it together. So while contemplating what thriving and liberation looks like for Black people in the 21st century, I could not help but think about Uncle Jimmy's line from his book, Nobody Knows My Name, that says, most people can delude themselves and get through their lives quite happily, but I still believe that the unexamined life is not worth living. As we have been born into this capitalistic society that militarizes infants and makes slaves out of men, can our veil be removed from us to actually recognize liberation? This trend of hatred has outlasted its newness, and at this very moment, it shackles its contributors in delusion. For too long, Stockholm Syndrome has caused the veil to blind us when we look in the mirror. The veil has blinded us from seeing freedom for so long that we began valuing how the veil looks more than our own faces. If I were to tell you how to be liberated, that means that I would value my own captivity and the oppressor who put me there more than I value you. If I were to tell you how to thrive, then that means that there was never a moment of being that you actually possessed that meant something to me. If I were to tell you how to love, that would mean that I did not value what God put inside of you. How can I love God if I don't love you? I'm sorry.
Brandon Brown, please come to the main office.
I apologize about that. But how can I love God if I don't love you? And how can I love you if I don't love God? Because we're family, can we have conversations like this? I just want to get and you can shake your head or give a thumbs up. Just okay, thank you. I just wanted to go into it. We have inherited a unique set of chains that have been stored away nicely, like the china in grandma's china cabinet. Contrary to our ancestors, these chains are not physical, but they are everything we love today that hurts us. As a social scientist, I would be remiss not to mention this. Spiritually, the chains have taught us to love oppression and reject faith. Mentally, the chains have taught us to love dysfunction and reject healing. Emotionally, the chains have taught us to love anxiety and reject wellness. And financially, the chains have taught us to love monetary wealth and reject ourselves. At this moment, I want to emphasize that rejection does not always look like letting go, but it can also be holding on. And when I say holding on, I mean holding on so tightly that you hold on with a weakened grip that is rather held so tightly that your body begins to pulse to one beat. This can be displayed through holding on to biases, holding on to differences. And this brings me to Brother Dave Chappelle's story of the Bushman and the baboon. When a bushman is lost and dehydrated in the wild, the bushman will create a salt trap by digging a hole and putting salt into it. When the baboon comes, it sticks his hand in the hole and grabs the salt without letting go, which makes his hand bigger. The bushman comes, traps the baboon in a cage, and gives the baboon all the salt that it can eat until the baboon is full. Once the baboon is full, the bushman opens the cage and sets the baboon free. The first place that the baboon runs after obtaining freedom is to the nearest body of water. Then the bushman follows behind him, and he is no longer dehydrated. Now, the most essential part of this story that needs to be recognized is not the bushman quenching his thirst, nor the baboon being greedy with the salt, but instead it is the reluctance of the baboon to let go of the salt. Now, for us, this salt can be symbolic of many things in our everyday lives. It can represent a hatred that we hold, a fear that we won't address, a passion we won't pursue, a love we won't allow to be fulfilled, a life we won't live, or a freedom we can't accept. But for us, right now, liberation may not be what we want, but what is actually needed. Thriving for us means not cheating ourselves out of love and not taking it lightly. It means being living embodiments of the thing that the world's hate, which is love. We must be a people dedicated to liberation and love. But for too long, we have been a people who are dedicated to surviving and not thriving. So for this life that we live as Black people in the 21st century, we have to recognize our position not as characters, but beings. For us to end these oppressive and repressive cycles, we need you. We need your Black abundance. We need your ambition. We need you, global Africa. We need you, brothers. We need you, sisters. We need your success. We need your heart. We need your brilliance. We need your courage. We need your prosperity. We need your laughter. We need your resilience. We need your tears. We need your faith. And most importantly, we need you. Thank you.
Thank you, my dear young brother Tre'Von. You give me hope.
Thank you,
Dr. Joy, for bringing him to our family. It is indeed a unique set of chains, a unique set of chains. That's the thing that I hope that comes across most vividly and most powerfully. It is a unique, multi-layered set of chains. It is complex. It is deeper, more complex, more diabolical, more evil, Dr. Joy, as we've talked about, than we realize. And so we wanted to use this time to open our eyes to that, to begin to open our eyes to that, as we invite you on this healing journey with us. I'm going to turn, in the interest of time, directly to you, Dr. DeGruy, to moderate questions from the audience to the panel, and comments brief, of course, from now until 12:20, when we will begin to conclude. Dr. DeGruy.
Thank you, Dr. Enola. My sincere apologies. I don't have a camera, so I would just want to hide behind the cross symbol. And it's just been a pleasure, Dr. Joy and Dr. Enola and Tre'Von and Kwesi, for such a wonderful session. You know, one of the things that I have always loved to listen to Dr. Joy is the way you bring history to life. And Dr. Enola, I have never heard the story about your birth. And, you know, knowing you and working with you for all of this time, it just tells me the passion that is in you to prove this white lie, that it is nothing but a lie. You know, so I think that we want to also give all our audience and the participants. We have over 60 people. We have 67 participants in this webinar, and I think it would just be very. It would not be justice to not allow any of you to be able to contribute to this session. And so before we go to a question of question and answers, I just want to say that there's also the question and answers chat, where you can actually put in your question and answers or any question that you may have. But because of time, we would want to just appeal to everyone who has a question to be very short, go straight to the point of the question that you have to ask, and we would give as much opportunity to many people as it is possible. So the first thing that I want to say is that keep your question to, I know it's not justice, to 2 minutes. We've had a very, very rich contribution from our speakers, and I'm sure that most of you would have contributions. And I would just want to say that because of time, if you have a contribution to this conversation, I would want to request that you type the contribution on the chat, which is the question and answers. And then we'll be able to reach out later and compile all of this. But if you have a question in particular addressed to any of the three speakers, I would want you to raise your hand. You can also type your question also in the question and answers, and then we'll be able to get that over to you. So I will take 3 rounds of questions, then 3 rounds of answers, and then we will have another 3 rounds of questions and 3 rounds of answers when we have the time. So, Kilson, if you may help me, I'm already seeing some hands pop up. Because it's a long list, I probably will have to see which hands have been raised first. So I have a hand from Raki Holman.
Yes, hello. Thank you for taking my question. First, I want to say hey to my sister Joy there. And I also wanted to thank Brother Kwesi for citing my great uncle, Amilcar Cabral, because I feel like he's someone that we can look to for studying ways to decolonize our mind. Sister Joy, I wanted to ask you, what are some ways that Africans throughout the diaspora can heal together? What are some ways? Because we're separated in many ways, but with the advent of social media and these different things, there are other ways that we can connect. So I just wanted to see what you might have on that.
Sure. I think that one of the things that the Global Circle for Reparations and Healing is doing is working shoulder to shoulder with people on the continent like Kwesi. I mean, we are establishing family across these lines. And what we have to do very intentionally, wherever we are, is to do that reach. We can't expect someone else to do it. If you're on a campus, if you are at work, if you're in your community, to reach across those lines and break bread together, to start familiarizing ourselves, because Raki, one of the things that I think we make assumptions about, what I learned because of my trips to Africa, is we make an assumption that we are aware of each other. Like, Brother Kwesi was saying, neither one of us were educated about each other. And what I found out, that on the continent, there's areas where there is absolutely no education, even in Ghana. It is now, it's beginning to happen because we brought attention to it, but people weren't being taught about the transatlantic trafficking of Africans. They weren't taught that. And you got the dungeons sitting there right there. And now they're beginning to do tours, and it's just not there. So we have to create the bridge. That's the key, is that we have to start the reach, and we need to start it young. We need to start our children understanding and normalizing our brothers and sisters throughout the diaspora, and specifically on the continent, and to stop and to defy what has happened in America, where you go, perfect example. My brother-in-law went to one of those high-end dealerships, and because he wanted to look at the cars, and they were like a real high-end, and they totally ignored him. He came back dressed in African garb, donned the African accent, and they all rushed towards him. That was an absolute truth. He did that, and they showed him. He got a test drive, everything, right? Because they did that difference. You're not one of those, right? So we have to really be careful about that. And let me just say, to be perfectly transparent, when you guys see and you hear about all the pictures and see the pictures of my fishing, this is my ride or die fishing partner, right? Rocky, he's with me every single time we go Every single, this is him. That's the brother right there. So I just want to be transparent about that. But thank you for joining us, Rocky, because your uncle, your ancestor is amazing, and we're standing on those shoulders. Thank you for asking.
Shay, thank you.
Okay, I have, before that, I have a question from our own Roberta, who is a member of our Healing Documentary Task Force. And she said, I'd like to thank the presenters for their brilliant explanations. My question for the presenters concerns our collective memory. How can formal education and family upbringing assist in this healing process? I ask this because in Brazil, the leading of African and Afro-Brazilian history, no, the teaching of African and Afro-Brazilian history and culture has been mandatory in public and private schools from early childhood education through high school. Since 2003, just ensuring compliance with the law remains a challenge. I would like to know how this process is unfolding in Ghana and other African countries. So I presume that probably this would be a question that Kwesi might be interested in, and also to all the panelists as well. So it's about formal education and in terms of, in Brazil and how that is replicated in the US or in Africa. It's a question online. You are muted. Maybe Dr. Enola or Tre'Von, you want to take this whilst we wait, or Dr. Joy?
Well, I would answer that it is not where we need it to be. And most importantly, it is not where we need it to be in our community. I'm not a fan of wanting to delegate to others, those who have historically not had our interests at heart, the task of educating our children in things like this about themselves. And so I think it is very, very important that as we strengthen the healing initiatives amongst us, that this question of how we preserve and transmit memory to our children be front and center. But I think it is our responsibility to do it. And I think one of the things that the Global Circle wants to be able to do is to provide models globally that we can share and build on. The answer being that we're not there yet, but it's where we want to be.
I would like to add that we would have to always go back to the family unit and see what alternative sources of education we can innovate. I am aware of educational systems that go way back, and we owe a lot to the work by Ayukweyama and the team at Perank in Popengin, Senegal, tracing our roots to the first educational system that built the innovators, before, the harnessing the rivers and everything, all the technological advancements of pre-dynastic Egypt have well been documented. And so we can always look for alternative systems of education through the family systems, and mothers and fathers and brothers and uncles and aunts will all have to be educators about ourselves, where we are coming from, beyond this affront on us. As I indicated in the presentation, at the time they even introduced formalized system of education in the coast of West Africa, Europe was still going through a lot of, darkness, right? Of course, then at some point, the so-called Enlightenment comes around, and it's as if, that's the, that what powered everything. But even if you look at China, you look at other places around the world, Japan, and how systems evolved over centuries, over decades, over, even millennia. We have to stretch our memories a bit further from the affrontations or the confrontations or the Martha as it is of this history that we have, and stretch it. In the memory of history, we can tap into a lot to be able to rebuild into the future. I mean, when we stop at the affront from the European and Arabic hegemonic experiences, we do not, we feel sometimes helpless. It is important that we tap into these resources. And I also know for a fact from the work that I do, working with indigenous knowledge holders, these systems have been transmitted from community to community all over. So there are stories, there are ways of learning, there are mythologies, there are folk tales. There's so much that we can learn by collectively looking at the resources that we have from all these different spaces and build alternative models of education, beyond the typical formalized schooling that we have had to deal with, and see what alternatives we can build into the future. I hope that is quite useful to the question. Thank you.
Thank you, my brother Kwesi. Thank you. Thank you so much. The next question that we have is coming from our own brother Sifiwe. And his question, and I would want to, he has one question on the chat, but I also know that Sifiwe is online and his hand is up. So Sifiwe, would I let you just read your question and ask any other further question that you have, my brother?
Thank you. Greetings. Since it was raised about Amilcar Cabral, I would just like everyone to know that I am calling from the homeland of Amilcar Cabral, Guinea-Bissau. I am happy that we are discussing about institution building. And my question is related to this. Is based on the experience that we have had, especially in the United States of America, financing our independent Black education institutions, especially the primary and secondary and high school education. My question is do we have any kind of specific models of how we are going to finance institutions that are specifically dedicated to this kind of reparations healing that we're talking about?
Thank you. Over to you, panelists.
I do not have an answer to that. We do need an answer. We welcome ideas and suggestions. I do know that there are resources within our own community globally. And so the question is, how do we begin the kinds of conversations that help us resonate with one another around these issues? We're not naive about the need for funding. Those of us who do this work without regard to funding. But we, as African people, need and deserve resources that the magnitude necessary to meet the magnitude of the problem. No question.
I would also say that, Dr. Enola, one of the things that we might want to do also on our next, series, part of the series, is to bring in some of the working group that is dealing with economics, that would have a better would have a better answer for you. I know that on the ground, grassroots, there's all kind of efforts that are happening on the ground. And like I know here locally, there's a lot of, because I'm in Georgia, and in Atlanta, so there's a lot of groups that are working independently, that are also working with private donors that are doing work. Black folks that are flying under the radar a bit, but definitely supporting the efforts and showing up in terms of research, in terms of, really trying to see how we can move things forward. I know that the historically Black colleges are also beginning to gain momentum and focus, largely because there's a huger influx of Black students that are showing up. And I think as it relates to primary education and secondary education, just really appreciating that. That's one of the things, the driving forces that's happening. I know spiritually, in terms of folks that are engaged in religious activities, that are trying to begin to do churches. I know the Baha'is are doing it. They're trying to reach children, youth, families, and really shore folks up in their spaces, in their own villages. So I think that part of the answer to that, Sapiwe, it really is us recognizing that we have all that we need if we focus on us. Okay. Again, I'm going to say it the best way I know. You have a choice where you spend your money. You have a choice. So again, just remember that there's power in our dollar, and we tend to spend it outside our community, and we need to focus in. But thanks for that question, Sapiwe.
There are two questions which are related to what we've just said, and there is a question from Jay Brand, which I would probably just put off for now, and just have this tag along these two questions. And there's one which says, how should we reconcile the idea that progress for our people requires education, while at the same time, educational achievement also binds us to the epistemologies that subject us to the lie and to perpetuating the lie? And number two, just related to that, how can we strategically educate our Black brothers and sisters who may not be ready to let go of the lie? I am always intentional about educating and reminding my dear friends across diaspora who reside here in America about the disconnect. So I think that Dr. Joy and Dr. Enola, please could you take these two questions, and if you want me to elaborate, I could elaborate more.
Both of us. Both of us, everybody here can really speak to that notion. I think Tre'Von has like I said, when I walk into the campus, when I walk onto the campus of Morehouse, I hear because it's blackety black, it's normalized Black, it's normalized scholarship, it's normalized. And again, that's higher education. But what I have 4 degrees, 3 advanced degrees. And what I was taught to do, and this is what we have to recognize, because these institutions aren't going away anytime soon, but we have to learn how to navigate them and get what we need. So from the time I started with my undergraduate degree, every single paper that I wrote, and this was because of my activist older sister and brother, they said, if you're going to write something, it better be about us. We're studying family dynamics. Great. I'm going to be doing Black family dynamics, right? We're looking at women and whatever it is. I'm going to be looking at Black women, right? Do you see what I'm saying? I had to operationalize because I didn't get my information. I had to get permission to look at me. And what we have to do if we're in these systems is we have to learn to get what our people need from it. We have to be the scholars. We have to be the researchers. We have to be the people who are literally writing our own narrative, whether that is in published articles or journals, whatever we're doing, we have to publish the truth. And in these institutions, I don't care what they tell you, you can always make it about Black people. Always. And that's just how I navigated to remain sane. That I had to do it, or I was going to be crazy. And the other thing, I'm going to just say this in terms of educating ourselves. Saturday schools, I'm pushing them. Saturday schools, we created. It's in community. It's local.
We can do it. Right. And when we first started talking about the lie, everybody thought we were insane, right? It was in 2006. And then it was 2008, and Barack Obama became president, and people were saying, "You're even more insane than we thought." And then Barack Obama became president, and everything changed. So for people who don't understand about the lie, you just have them, you just need to point to how it is operating. I mean, it's a question of just explaining what is happening around people. And what happened with us is that people finally said, "Oh, okay." When stuff hit the fan around Barack Obama, and everything that is coming to fruition now began to happen, people were like, "Oh, oh, oh, we see." So it's obvious, and it's becoming more and more obvious all the time that the lie is operating, and that we need, and this is where I will end because we want to be respectful of your time and turn over to
Yeah.
Dr. Joy. Thank you, Dr. Brugre.
Thank you. I
James
think I'll
Baldwin.
just have Dr. Enola, if you may.
Yeah,
Apologies for cutting you off, but
no
if I may
problem.
just have Jay Brandt, you have a question, just 1 minute.
Okay, because it's 12:30. We want to be respectful of everyone's time. But go
Yeah,
ahead, Dr. Brugre.
yeah, because this person was online, so and they
Understood.
have
Thank you,
their
Dr.
hand on.
Brugre.
So please just go ahead and ask your question. 1 minute. Jay Brandt, you are muted. So I just read your question.
Hello?
Oh, okay.
Oh,
Now you are on. Yes, please. Go ahead.
well, I had another question actually, and that was finding accurate information about our history, because as you were talking about the lie, they seem to be flooding the zone in America as far as our internet. So families that would like to research about Black history are getting lies mixed with the truth. So finding a place where or being able to access a reliable, credible source to be able to teach our children, because a lot of us didn't learn in school about our own history. Can you?
Thank you. And I think that you also had another question on how do we learn to thrive, not
To
just
thrive?
survive or maintain.
Right. Our ancestors
So
taught us how to, excuse me.
yeah,
Our ancestors taught us how to maintain and to survive, but I don't think they ever taught us how to thrive, because I don't think they had an opportunity to learn how to thrive. So how do we do it and teach
I'd love to
others?
answer that, and I will. I see young Tre'Von smiling, and I hope you have an answer around because you're in the scholarly space, and Dr. Joy, you are too. As to sources for our audience. But Jay Brent, on the question of thriving, for us, the answer is this: we've got to heal. We've got to heal 600 plus years of dehumanization, of European substituting their identity for African identity. We have to heal. We have to go through a process of coming back into our right minds. James Baldwin says that people are trapped in history, and history is trapped in them. And we believe that very, very firmly, that we have to escape this narrative that we have been in for 600 plus years, controlled by other people, and write our own story. And a very important part, a crucial part of that, is this healing journey that we are now inviting you to join us on. Dr. Joy, let me turn to you to, yes,
Trayvon.
Tre'Von.
Tre'Von, if you have a response to any of those things, feel free. You got to jump in there, because this, we get intense, and you got to jump in.
So I would say, wow, first that was that was a great loaded question. So I want to hit on the first one. How do we learn to thrive and not just survive or maintain? First, I would say that it starts with community. We have to assess who is around us, and then we have to look at our goals. I think listing our goals of what we want out of our lives, and what we want as a Black people, a people who have been oppressed, and we can recognize these things. Where do we want to start? Where do we want to start? What would we like to do? And how would we like to impact the younger generations to come after us? And as we look at that, there is a plethora of literature. I know you said and I don't want to misquote you, but the other question you asked is just in tandem with this. You said there has been a lack of or no. I just want to make sure I heard you right, Jay Brent.
It the internet is being flooded with a lot of misinformation where they might take a little bit of truth and then mix it with a whole bunch of lie. That might
Absolutely.
sound good, but it's not right, which is still
Absolutely.
dangerous.
And it is dangerous. And I think moving ourselves away from just what we're taught inside of our institutions or our institutions of primary education, and also some of our own homes. We may be regurgitated what they've been taught, because they've been taught by we've been taught by the oppressor, right? So it's books that I would say to start off with: The Miseducation of the Negro, Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome by Dr. DeGruy, the autobiography of Malcolm X, and I'll type them in the chat too, or I'll try to, but Miseducation of the Negro, the autobiography of Malcolm X, Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome by Dr. DeGruy, Where Do We Go From Here by Martin Luther King Jr. I think that's a seminal text, because that is a text where Dr. King recognized, like, there's a quote that I believe Harry Belafonte said, that during his last days, Dr. King said, "I think I've integrated my people into a burning house." And part of that comes because Dr. King saw the effects of and the unjust and mistreatment of Black people continuously going on, and how when we took away our dollars, as Dr. DeGruy alluded to, like, there is power in our money. And when we took away our dollars, we saw that the bus companies, nothing was changing with them. And they're like, so they just still gonna keep walking. And it's like, yeah, because of that interdependence and that Sankofa and that Ubuntu. So Sankofa being, Ubuntu being I am because we are, and then Sankofa being go back and get. Like, if you need a ride, I can help drive you. If you need money to help feed your horse and you're driving a wagon, I'm going to help you with that. If you need me to watch your children and you can trust me with watching your children and also helping educate them in a way that benefits the whole family, right? Not because Dr. DeGruy alluded to the significance of, or like, getting these pieces of paper, which are degrees, to add validity, but that isn't just where education stops. That isn't us being educated. And there's a rap group, Dead Prez, they said their schools aren't teaching us nothing, basically, right? Because the schools weren't created for us. So even Dr. Huey P. Newton, right? Because he was a doctor, he did earn his PhD. When we look at the Black Panthers reading list that they've supplied, there are so many texts that still impact us significantly to this day. We can look at Black Sexual Politics by Patricia Hill Collins to see how hegemony and patriarchy have impacted us. We can look at Bell Hooks' The Will to Change. We can look at Kimberly Crenshaw. I'm sorry,
and I think we can, and you've challenged us, Jay Brent, to develop a reading list. And I just want to touch on two. One is the UN has a world history of Africa that's been developed by Africans as a kind of definitive source. And I know Skip Gates has done a lot of work on the history of African Americans. But I think we challenge ourselves, and we will respond to this challenge to develop a credible reading list of the truth about ourselves.
Thank you. Enola, I would want to hand over back to you because of time. But one thing that I would want us to just reflect on, which we haven't discussed, I think it's Jay Brent or someone who mentioned, the relationship between African Americans and African migrants living in the US. That's a different story that we need to talk about, and how we actually see each other. So I want to hand over back to you, Dr. Enola.
Great note to hand over on Dr. DeGruy, because that's part of our agenda, right? Reminder that this is one webinar in a series of webinars, and that we will have a chance to begin to explore it. And all of these are themes are touched upon in the movie about which this webinar series, about this webinar series that we're talking about in this webinar series, Centering Healing Across Global Africa. But I want to end my part by reminding us of the quotation at the top of your program from Marcus Garvey, whose birthday we celebrated on the 17th of this month. We have a beautiful history, and we shall create another in the future that will astonish the world. At the Global Circle, we believe that with every fiber of our being, and that the key to that beautiful future is, in fact, healing. Over to you, Dr. Joy.
I know we're already over time. Just want to thank everyone for being here. Remind you that the next webinar will be October 26th, but from 11 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. Eastern. We hope that you will join us, find some other folks that'll join us too. And one of the answers is that we keep doing this. We get real live. I keep telling people that, we have to begin to do old school. We got to talk to our neighbors and know them and engage with the children at the school, even though you don't have any. We have to show up. This isn't going to be given to us. We have to create the vision of our future that our ancestors knew so well that we could build. So I just want everyone.
Those people who, Dr. Joy, I just want to say that those people who had questions, just got a note from Dr. DeGruy. We will be reaching out with answers to those questions. Thank you, Dr. DeGruy.
And thank all the people who actually brought questions. I know that there are a lot of others, but that's why we got to keep doing this. And you don't have to wait for us to do this. You can create this for yourself as well. But I just wanted for everybody, however you can, to say one word right now that you're thinking, one word that will describe what you want. One word. I'm going to say peace.
I'm going to say love.
I'm going to say joy. Kwesi?
I'm going to say unity.
Thank you, Dr. DeGruy.
I'm sure Kwesi is struggling with his internet.
Is it possible for people who are listening to just be able to just say their one word? You can.
Well, I will also use peace. Peace.
We have a few in the chat. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Kwesi. Jacqueline Whitaker said community. Jean Lilly said Ubuntu. Jay Brent said unity. Audrey Haddon said empowerment. Sifawi Balika said justice.
Justice, yeah. And Ife, freedom. Ubuntu, breakthrough. Yeah. Dr. Enola.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thanks to everyone for joining us. And Nana, would you please close us out with another
The message from
Centering Healing.
Accra Summit 2, Centering Healing, is urgent. Healing is not optional. It is essential. It is the pathway to our unity and our empowerment.
We then hope that globally, this is an agenda that will have a momentum, and ultimately we'll be having concrete elements of healing being a concrete part of justice and reparation. So we are not just talking about compensation, we are not just talking about the legal elements of it, but we are talking about these internal and external aspects of healing.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. And you have a wonderful, wonderful day.
And thank you, Dr. DeGruy, Emmanuel, Kielsen, everybody who made this possible. It was a lovely production. Thank you very much. Blessings.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
I didn't get to do the plug. I wanted to do the plug. I couldn't get it in there. We'll do it though. We'll do it, Tre'Von. We're going to do some plugs in terms of, no, I'm serious, in terms of funding and creating funding. But let's talk, Tre'Von.
Absolutely. I'm sorry, I was muted this whole time. No, I said it was.
No worries. No worries. No worries.
Thank you so much, Dr.
Bye-bye.
Oh, pirates, yes, they are by. So die to the merchant ships. Minutes after they took I from the bottomless pits, but my hand was made strong by the hand of the Almighty. We forward in this generation triumphantly. Won't you help to sing these songs of freedom? 'Cause all I ever have, redemption song, redemption song. Emancipate yourselves from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds. Have no fear for